It is hard to forget one of the most mysterious encounters in the game, which is when we encounter the giant straw or giant rope man. I'd like to offer my theory on this, on what this being is and what it is meant to represent, as well as its significance. Bear in mind that this is my theory, given there isn't much or any in-game lore regarding this being. I believe that the rope man plays a role in ritual purification and in marking the entrance to a sacred space, in this case Fountainhead Palace and the divine realm beyond. He is the physical representation of the barrier between the divine and the human world, and acts as a talisman that prevents any corruption from the former human world entering the divine. The rope man takes the form of a real-life Japanese straw doll called Wara Ninjo, for which I will provide further reading in the below if you're interested. These dolls can be used to ward against evil, and this is fitting, given the straw man's position at the entrance of the palace as a defence against anything bad or corrupt. This symbolism is evidently not just a design choice, for his placement in front of Fountainhead Palace and his appearance of a Wara Ninjo seems to imply that he is a defence against corruption in the divine realm. There is something else about his appearance that we should talk about, and that is the piece of wood that is in the centre of his body. On this there is a talisman with some script written on it. Now, I actually did pass this script to a number of Chinese and Japanese speakers, and every time I kind of got the same answer, that they couldn't translate this, and that it was a very old script that you would most likely see on stamps, companies, and that, given the context, it was most likely just some nice script added for flavour. However, what is interesting is the item it is written on, for this is another protective talisman, not too dissimilar from the talismans we can see covering the dilapidated temple. Thus, the entire appearance of the straw man takes the form of a protective and purifying object to keep the passage to the divine realm pure. In the Shinto religion, there is a type of rice straw rope that is called the Shimenawa, or Enclosing rope, which is used for ritual purification and to enclose sacred spaces. If you take a look at examples of these ropes in real life, you can definitely see the similarity between these and the rope man. These ropes are often used to enclose or signify boundaries to a sacred space, e.g. the Fountainhead Palace or the Great Serpent Shrine in-game. Sometimes sacred people, including sumo wrestler grand champions, would wear versions of these. Ultimately, these are meant to protect the divine from corruption, or perhaps, in the context of Fountainhead Palace, protect it from corruption of humans. These ropes are often found hanging within gateways known as torii. Torii mark the transition from the earthly and the divine, and in fact we can see this exact application of these ropes in-game in the lead-up to the Great Serpent Shrine behind Ashina Castle. There are more examples of these ropes in-game. In Mibu Village, we can see a rope, a Shimenawa, enclosing the high priest of the village, wrapped around his body, much like I said about the sumo wrestlers, showing that it is enclosing someone holy. There's also one of these ropes, enclosing the entrance to the wedding cave found within the village, again marking the entrance to a sacred space. And as we mentioned before, we see Shimenawa marking the entrance to the Great Serpent Shrine. And again, these reflect the appearance of these ropes in real life. The reason that I mention these ropes in such detail is that I believe that the rope man, or the straw man, plays a similar role in enclosing the sacred space of Fountainhead Palace, and I think it's important to highlight that these ropes exist in-game so that we show it is not an isolated idea. We cannot reach the divine realm, or Fountainhead Palace, until we take part in ritual purification through the wedding ceremony that we get mention of in the game. After this, we are allowed to pass through the large animated straw man into the divine realm. We repeatedly get mention of this ritual, which obviously has something to do with the cave, which is called the wedding cave. This is where the ceremony begins. The shelter stone item clearly hints at the religious nature of this ceremony, for it states, "Step into the marital shrine and offer the fragrant auspicious stone." It is clearly a pseudo-religious act that is used to enter the divine realm, with the rope man playing a role in this ritual purification, by only transporting those who have actually taken part in this ceremony. In essence, this allows the divine realm and those who inhabit it to retain their purity. Consider that the only quote-unquote people that exist in this realm are the inhuman Okami and the inhuman nobles. Now consider the item Water of the Palace, which states this: when a wedding procession arrives at the Fountainhead Palace, this is the drink they are greeted with. The nectar of the palace nobles. Go ahead, drink to your heart's content. The participants of these ceremonies are awarded this drink for completing the wedding ceremony, which would bring them to Fountainhead. This water appears to be the source of the transformation from the human form to the form that the nobles take. For if you give this item to the High Priest of Mibu, he will transform into a noble after consuming the waters of the palace. We can therefore summarize this process. 1 completes the ritual, proving your purity and devotion. You are then granted passage through the rope man to the divine realm, where you are transformed into an inhuman form, and thus purification has taken place, and the purity of the divine realm is kept. We instead create an incense that simulates the same results of the wedding ceremony. The rope man senses this and takes us up to the divine realm. We have crossed over from the human realm into the divine, and we are treated to a scene where he literally transports us to the divine realm. The rope man is a barrier between the divine and the human in this game, the symbolic representation of such. Only select humans can pass through him into the enclosed divine space, and in that manner he is a protective talisman, keeping out any corruption from Fountainhead Palace. So thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed my theory, my take on the rope man, and that it gives you some kind of understanding as to what role he might actually play. If you like this video and you want to see more kind of concrete lore videos, I have plenty of those on my YouTube channel, so please subscribe and like for more content. Thanks guys.